Sport is the direct reflection of the Caulfield Hebrew congregation's fundamental values. The Shul has always maintained a strong, proud and enduring support for Israel. Caulfield Shul is a modern and proudly Zionistic Shul, and this is deeply reflected in the essence of its membership. Our commitment to Zionism is a central feature in defining who we are as individuals and as a congregation. Excuse me if I could have some quiet, please. Thank you. This breakfast, as well as being a celebration, is a collective statement of belief, and it is an opportunity to stand up for the state of Israel as a community during challenging times. On behalf of the board, and if I could beg your indulgence for a minute, I'd like to take this opportunity, whilst there is such a diverse representation of Shul members in the hall, to share with you, in confidence of course, the behind-the-scenes inner workings of your current board. 11 people from a range of backgrounds and ages sit around the board table on a monthly basis, with many subcommittees meeting throughout the month in respect of their specific portfolios. I think it is absolutely true and fair to say that none of us really knew each other well or had worked with each other beforehand. But within a very, very short period of time, some very strong relationships have developed. This is truly a harmonious group of people. There is absolutely no baggage, no deadwood, there are no schlappers. Each member has voluntarily put up his or her hand for a portfolio role, and every member is energetic and motivated and is a doer. Collectively, this board is highly motivated and hardworking with a strong sense of purpose and vision, ably led by Gary Friedman, his vice presidents and the executive. And as importantly, each one of us is quite honestly enjoying their roles, seeing results for their efforts and having some fun on the way. This leads me to our next speaker, who needs no introduction at all, Rabbi Ralph. Not only is the board working harmoniously within itself, but the relationship between it and the rabbi is extremely strong and close. There is, as you'd expect and hope, tremendous goodwill and mutual respect between the board and the rabbi. And why shouldn't there be? His leadership has been absolutely transformational. If success can be measured by growth of members and resurgence of community spirit, then the rabbi has been truly successful in his role in every respect. One can't create artificial warmth and goodwill. It can only be genuine, and that is certainly evident and apparent under his wonderful leadership. He has created a new and deeply felt level of connection with Caulfield Shul members. One of his many strengths, and I have been a recipient of this recently, is his level of compassion and personal time offered visiting the sick. He makes it his business, and in my personal case, he found out recently that my own mother was unwell and hospitalised, and he has visited her and phoned her very, very often. So much so that my 87-year-old mother rang me recently and said, "Rodney, I don't want to start any rumours or any gossip, but he's been here so often, do you think his wife knows what he's up to?" True story. I said, "Don't worry, Dad, Karen's a very broad-minded lady, even spells her name with a C, and I'm sure she'll turn a blind eye." True story. So on that note, please join me in welcoming Rabbi Ralph.
Thanks, Rodney, and I also extend my welcome to our very many special guests who have joined us this morning. A biker riding past the zoo, and he sees a little girl, and she's leaning into the lion's cage, and suddenly the lion grabs her by her cuff, and Jacket is trying to pull her into his cage, and there's a struggle going on there under the eyes of her screaming parents. The biker sees this, he jumps off his bike, he runs straight up to the cage, and he hits the lion square on the nose with a powerful punch. And whimpering from the pain, the lion jumps back, releases the girl, and he takes her to her terrified parents, thank him endlessly. And a reporter has witnessed this whole scene, and he addresses the bikie and he says to him, "Sir, that's the most gallant and brave thing that I've seen my whole life." Well, the bikie says, "No, it's nothing, anyone else would have done this. The kid was in danger and I acted as I felt was the right thing to do." And the journalist turns to him and says, I notice there's a patch on your jacket. He says, yes. He says, I ride with an Israeli motorcycle club. He says, well, I'm sure this is not going to go unnoticed as a journalist. I'm with the Times. That's not saying it's the Jewish Times. And tomorrow we're going to have this on the front page. And the following morning, the biker bought the paper. He wanted to see if he was there. And his news was brought out there. And on the very front page was the headline, Israeli gang member assaults African immigrant and steals his lunch. The sad thing about this joke is that it actually reflects the mood of hostility towards Israel that is so powerful today, where in far too many places where Israel can only do wrong, no matter what it does, it is judged critically and negatively. Many Israelis, especially secular, have lost their own belief in Israel, and there is a deep divide in the Zionist narrative today, and it's also evident in the diaspora. But I don't want to talk about the perplexing problems and issues that are dividing Israel and us in the diaspora. This is, after all, a morning of celebration and a morning of affirmation. And a reminder, too, that for all its intractable difficulties and intractable Jews, Israel remains a small country where so much has been achieved in so short a time. It is the repository, and it remains for us the repository of centuries of Jewish dreaming. Our connection to the land, after all, goes back to the very first Jew, back to Abraham Avinu, back to Abraham himself. And it's a practical place where so many dreams have become and do become reality. And it does remain, for all, it remains the singular locus of Jewish hope for the Jewish future. Israel is our gateway to hope, not only for us, but I think for the world as well. The small, argumentative democracy in the middle of a place where democracy is not greatly respected. It represents, as I've spoken before, about what Rabbi Jonathan Sachs calls the difference between optimism and hope. Optimism, as Sachs says, he says, is the belief that things are going to get better, but hope is that we're going to make them better. Optimism is something that is passive, but hope is something that is active. And that's why Hatikva is active, and so it is superbly appropriate that it's the name and the substance of the anthem of Israel. This morning's breakfast is also about the resurgence of energy, as you've heard from Rodney, and hope in our community here at Caulfield Shore. And I want to salute the energetic enthusiasm of the board, and particularly this morning of our MC, of Rodney Horan, and of Pauline Jacobson, for bringing this breakfast together the way that they have. Some years ago, the Harvard sociologist Robert Putnam discovered, he said, that more Americans were going 10-pin bowling, but fewer of them were actually joining 10-pin bowling clubs. And he called the name of his study Bowling Alone, because he said society today tends to be more about bowling alone, certainly in the West. In the old days, people wanted to hear music, they were most likely to go to a concert, share it with other people. But today, when you want to listen to music, you just plug in your iPod and you listen alone. But the truth is, as much as I love my iPod or my computer screen, it doesn't answer that feeling within, that hunger that we all have for companionship. We long for someone to reach out to and someone to touch us. People need people to be people. And the Torah said it said, Lo tov heyot adam levado. It's not good for one to be alone. Aristotle said we're all social animals. And that's why we need community. And that's why we need a place to share, care, to dream together, a place for our kids to connect to their tradition, a home of shared values. And that's what we're doing right here at Caulfield Shul, together, rabbis, board, chazanim, administration, and all of our members. And that's why I'm delighted if you got up early this morning, on a Sunday morning, to join us for breakfast. May we always bowl together. May Israel always be part of the bowling nations. May its vision remain clear, its skills unwavering, its determination unyielding. And may Hashem bless Medinat Yisrael with power, with peace. Hashem oz, lamo yiten, Hashem yibarech kamo v'shalom. Amen.